Hello everybody and welcome back to the Retro Recall. I hope you're doing awesome. Today we have the Cooler Master Twins, two seemingly identical systems that were saved from hitting the e-waste scrap pile. E-waste, where all electronical equipment goes to die and gets recycled into spoons. That's right, spoons. We save these from spoons. Okay, so what we're going to do today is go over these systems individually. Kind of see what kind of condition the cases are in, what's inside, can we get them to post, and then we can decide what we're going to do from there. So there's lots of work to do, so let's get right to it. Okay, so we have system number one on the bench, and there's no way to discern these outside of the fact that we have two identical systems. So we'll go through them and see what we're going to save, what we're not going to save, that sort of thing. So this system itself, I just love the look of this computer, the tower, the design. This is all ventilation. I mean, this is all metal in the front, and definitely, Cooler Master living up to its name, because nothing but airflow can pass through here, which is good. And the side of it is, of course, dust and dirt and all that stuff gets pulled into there as well. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. The Cooler Master logo that we have here as well, and it looks like it's kind of damaged here by indenting, but I think that's the design of what the case is. And then we have a sticker here indicating Intel Core 2 Quad CPU inside. So I don't know what that gives us an indication of in terms of what it may have been used for, but definitely, a system of its time having a CPU like that is definitely beneficial. And then here we have, just looks like a generic Super Write Master drive. So I would imagine this is a DVD burner of some sort that's in here. But yeah, let's just keep on looking at the system and going from there. So on this side of the case, we have what looks to be a little bit of damage. And sorry about the lighting, guys. Something about the case definitely absorbs that, absorbs the lighting. So over here we have, looks to be a power button. We have a reset button here, R, indicative of the R. And then we have what looks like the power LED and an R hard drive activity LED that's here. And, it's interesting that's on the side of the case over here, definitely protected from, it's flush, not something you're going to bump up against easily. So good to leave the system running that way. And then, of course, we have the side panel that's here as well. But it looks like there's some damage here on the actual case itself, and paper, looks like a receipt of some sort that's popping out of it. So, yeah, so we definitely have some damage that's up inside here. So, it's unfortunate for sure, but we'll just keep on reviewing it here. And then we still have additional cooling that looks like it's here. And I believe this would be on the motherboard side of the case. And just interesting to see that on that side. So definitely have the options for different types of cooling here in the case. And again, it's Cooler Master case, so it's definitely designed for that sort of thing. So we have a motherboard that's installed here of some sort, so we'll figure that out as we go, but it has the two PS2, it has a COM and a video out, VGA out. We have two USB and an Ethernet port. It's very basic. Doesn't seem to be like a lot in there. And then it looks like we have a TP-Link, as written on the back, additional network card expansion that's in here. And when I look at that, it shows 10100, 1000, and FDX. So I don't know if that was more of an advanced network card of some sort or just a feature-rich one. And then we have a power supply here as well. That's installed, which is great to have that as part of the system. And just it looks like there's a fan actually mounted in here. There is 4 screws here. So we have a big fan that's mounted here on top of the regular fan that we have as part of the PSU. And I don't know if this is a toolless design of some sort. We'll sort in that as we go. And we have some rubber grommets here. So I don't know if that would be probably for liquid cooling of some sort, but definitely interesting to see that in this case. Yeah, so it's showing a manufacturing date of March 29th of 2010. Okay, let's open up this case. And the nice thing about this is that it's thumb screws. Only one, may I add, but thumb screws. So we have that in there. So I'd like to do something with this of some sort of future build, but again, just with the damage of this case, I don't know if this will be the one used or we're going to take something out from another system. Okay, let's open up the case and see what we're dealing with. And just on this side here as well, we have two mounts for two more fans, but we have this a fan actually mounted in here that I see here. So we'll pull that out here, and I'll be careful just to see what we have going on here. So, I mean, the fan's not even connected here. So, I mean, we do have the Cooler Master fan there as well, which is nice to have. But again, it's just not connected. But there's dirt on it, so it definitely was at one point. Looking at the inside of this case. Wow, definitely lots going on in here. Okay, so we have a beautiful looking open design. Lots of, and it is this toolless design, which is just beautiful. Tons of expansion availability in here for, hard drive expansions. And I don't know if this has the two. I mean, you can get the adapter for it to go to a 2-inch drive instead of the 3.5, but definitely, you can do a solid state and what have you in there. We have a Cooler Master 500 watt power supply, ATX power supply that's installed in here. And we still have the CPU populated, which is great. And we also have memory populated there as well. The board itself, so there's our network card. I'm just looking at the board itself and see if I can get a model off of it. It says Intel server board S3200SH. So S3200SH is the model of the board itself. I'll be honest, I haven't seen too many server boards and desktop type form factors. So definitely interesting to see there. I'm not seeing any hard disks that are installed in here. So, I mean, that's definitely a shame, but something we can definitely work with. We have lots of cable management options as part of the case itself. So all the cables running through this channel, it looks like down inside here. So that's definitely a win to have there as well. And for the memory, I'm just going to see what we have. We have 4 sticks, and one of the sticks, I'm just gonna leave that in there because it is broken off in there. So up here in the corner here, we have, unfortunately, we have one of the tabs broken off of the memory stick. So I'm just going to take one from the other one, just to make sure we have that. So we have some low profile memory. So it looks like 1 gigabyte of DDR2 800 DIMM memory. So does this have 4 gigs of RAM maybe, if it's populated this way? So we have a server board running an Intel Core 2 quad, running potentially 4 gigabytes of memory in the Intel server board. Yeah, definitely interesting. Definitely interesting design in here for sure. And so looking at the bottom of the board, we have some internal USB, like an internal USB connector that's on the motherboard itself. We have our typical I/O headers. We have our SATA connectors. It looks like we have 3 SATA expansions there on the inside, and then we have, of course, some other options here as well. And then we have a bolt mounted speaker button that's on the board itself. We have, it looks like 2 PCI expansions. We have PCI Express lanes that are there as well. Definitely gives you some option for expansion if you want to utilize something other than the onboard video that's on here. It doesn't have any sound at all that's built onto this board. I mean, being a server board, there wouldn't be, I guess any sort of need for that. But, you could put in a PCI sound card if that's what you really wanted to do. But yeah, it definitely gives you lots of options in here for expansion. And I'm just more flabbergasted the fact I haven't seen a board like this in a long time, or ever, to be honest. And, it's just interesting to see. And we do have a floppy drive, looks like a floppy header on the motherboard itself here as well. So it does give you some kind of backwards compatibility, as well if needed. I mean, outside of that, I mean, system looks to be mainly complete. Outside of the damage to the case itself on the outside and missing 2 hard drives. And that RAM up top is seated, but it doesn't give me the latch to pop it back out. So, you know, that's unfortunate. There's some damage to the board itself there. I wonder if that's something I could desolder and solder on a new one. And presumably if the other case itself, you know, the other system is identical to this, you know, could we mash the two together and get a really solid, good working system? So what I'm going to do is get this kind of turned around, get a keyboard, mouse, get everything kind of set up. It is running PS2, so I'll run that. So we'll get this all sorted out, get it all set up on the bench, and see if we can get this system posting. Okay, and we're back all set up on the bench with our trusted HP monitor. Now, I did say I was going to use PS2, and I'm just using the Dell USB keyboard and mouse that I have. Monitor's on, plugged in, tower's turned on in the back of the PSU. Let's turn the power on. Get beeps right away. I believe that's probably a memory problem. And remember I told everyone every time I touch RAM on this channel, it never works a second time. And yes, I did reset that memory before I turned it back on when I had removed it. So I'm going to see what I can do to get that working again. Okay, so I took all the memory out and I used some contact cleaner on all the slots because, as everyone knows on this channel, no matter what I do with RAM, I touch it, it just breaks. So I sprayed it with the contact cleaner, popped it in, and let's power up the machine. Again, the power button being on this side of the case. Okay, it's powering up. We're not getting that pesky error beeping anymore, which is good news. And we have black screen. Not getting any post anything yet. Oh, something's coming up on the screen. Server RAID Technology 2 version A, etc., etc., etc. So it talks about the Intel embedded server RAID Technology 2. So, I mean, it does have embedded RAID on board, which is really, really, really cool. And so it's obviously going to tell me there's no hard disk found. It did find the DVD drive. So it is a TSST core. It goes way too fast for me to catch that on startup. Okay, it says, and it's doing the typical Intel boot agent. Let's see if we can get this restarted and get into the BIOS. And just, I want to see what kind of configuration we have in there. And yeah, just kind of give us a better understanding of what's in this system. Yeah, that delayed startup must be server board or server type. I know most servers I've dealt with in the past have that had issue or that delay. Okay, I'm hitting F2. Enter. Oh, okay, entering setup. Okay, so we have our CMOS or BIOS loaded up here. Let me just take a look here. Here, we'll do a better angle so everyone can see the screen. Okay, so we have logged in as administrator, platform ID. So it's an S3200 SHV board. And we got that from the silk screen itself. It says the BIOS version, so we have that. The build date is showing of May 22nd, 2009. The processor, Core 2, 2.67 gigahertz. Frequency running at 2.6 gigahertz. Memory size is 4 gig. Remember, I went in and sprayed it with contact cleaner, so it is detecting all 4, including on that slot that had the broken tab on it. So it's good to see that. And then quiet boot is disabled, post error pause is disabled, and then the system date, and it's detecting the date and time. So, I mean, it's 13 years old now or 14 years old now. Either the battery's been replaced, the coin cell, or it is just working. Advanced. So we have processor configuration. So our processor family is Core 2, 2.67 gigahertz. L2 cache is 2 meg by 2. So remember, this is the core, the quad. Core 2 quad. So core multiprocessing is enabled. Enhanced Intel speed step tech is enabled. Yeah, so I mean, we have all the configurations for the CPU that are here. Nothing fancy outside of the fact that it is detecting the CPU, which is great. So we have our memory configuration. So we have 4 gigabytes, dual channel 800 megahertz memory, and then we show our populated RAM slots there. And yeah, the more I go into this, obviously, the more I'm thinking that these systems were used as servers of some sort. So we have the onboard SATA controller is enabled, configure SATA as RAID. So that is that RAID prompt that we keep on getting. So it's trying to configure the drives in the series as RAID. And so I can click on that and I can just choose to do an IDE or AHCI. We'll keep it as RAID for now because we're not going to change anything at the moment until we decide what we're going to do with these systems. So serial port configuration, I mean, pretty straightforward. What resources it's going to take there. USB configuration, same thing. Detecting, it's updating. So we have USB controller plus legacy USB support is enabled, which is great. And then the USB 2 controller is enabled as well. Let's go to there. It wasn't doing it for a moment. So PCI configuration. So we have dual monitor video is enabled. So generally when you have onboard video and then you have an add-on video card that you put in like through the PCIe slot, that it would disable one or the other, but this allows you to have the two right from the get-go, which is great. And again, indicative of a server type build. Onboard NIC ROM enabled, to be able to boot with NIC and stuff. So yeah, it's great to have that on board. Security, yeah, I was going to say nothing's installed. It just defaults me into being the administrator, but you can actually set up the system to do that. And then front panel lockout is disabled as well. Server management. So, I mean, we already know it's a server board, has server features, but I mean, I couldn't imagine anyone putting this together unless it was designed to be used in a server type role. And if you had two systems that were identical, it's possible they were on some sort of domain, or possible that one was being used, or they were being used as a domain controller and a server type environment. Not sure, but or just failover, instant failover to the system. But interesting being in a custom built versus, like, you know, I'm so used to seeing like a Dell server, for example, even in a tower form factor or rack mounted. But when you see it like this, it's just interesting. So we have all the different server settings that we have inside here as well. And then we have our boot options that, yeah, just typical boot stuff, and then boot manager. Okay. I would fair to say that there's definitely an updated BIOS that we could potentially do to this system. I don't know what benefit it would give us, depending on how we want to go. But I mean, you know, the BIOS is showing 2007, showing build date of 2009, and there's a sticker on the back of this saying it was built in 2010, early 2010. So I don't know what it is, but it's still at a minimum of 13 years old, possibly 14. I would say at the stretch, and using older hardware, but older within a year or so. Okay, so we know the system posts. We know it's good hardware that's in here. The unfortunate thing for this particular system is that it does have physical damage to the case. We have some damage to the top plastics. We have some dented on the side panel. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the physical case itself. I mean, it works. It's not something I'm just going to literally toss out. Let's jump into system number 2. Do an overview of that system, see what condition it's in, and see if we can get that system posted as well. Okay, so we have system number 2 now, and if I, wasn't so honest at the beginning and showing you both systems, you'd think I'd be reviewing the exact same system again. I'm not. This system had the twins. Okay, so going over the same case, it is identical in terms of the form factor. It's the identical physical case. Cooler Master logo. We still have our DVD burner up top. I am showing signs of some rust down inside here, so there was definitely some moisture exposed to the system. So, that's something that we could definitely get cleaned up. And then we have, again, the same identical sticker. So the Intel Core 2 Quad inside. So again, leading up to the fact that if they're both server boards that are installed here, if that's truly what's inside this one as well, and they're identical systems, it was probably used as a cluster of some sort, or potentially, a domain type environment. So definitely cool to have in that case. So on this side here, the front of the case seems to be not so good. Yeah, that's going to require a little bit of TLC in the front there, but that's okay. We can do that. Okay, so on this side here, we have our side panel, nothing too fancy. Identical to the other system. There's some much more physical damage to the side of this this case, so this side panel. So definitely something that we can. The other one looked to be actually really pristine, to be honest with you. So something we could swap back and forth if needed. We have that. Let's flip it around the back and see what we have in the back. So we have the board here. I mean, it looks to be the same type of board that we have inside here. Same I/O panel, same I/O in the back. 2 PS2, we have our serial, and then we also have our VGA. We have 2 USB and Ethernet and an expansion missing. And if it was matching the other system, it's probably the network card that's missing from there. And then we have a block missing here for a PSU. Now, it's in there. It's literally in there, but it is just floating, which gives me extreme pause, in the sense that if that's been floating around inside there, what damage has been done to the board and or other areas. So yeah, that's very unfortunate that this was kind of tossed around as a result. But anyway, we're here. We'll see what we can do to decide how we're going to resurrect this. Now, this side of the panel is definitely in much better shape than the other panel was. Where the fan was on the other panel was kind of indented in. So maybe, a Frankenstein of two type of the systems to get into one good working physical case is great. And then also the top plastics here are all intact. So that's good news. Okay, I'm going to pop this off. Now, that said, there was no screws in this one at all. So I'm removing that. And again, same idea. We have the side panel fan, but not connected at all. But yeah, there's dust on the fan. So it was connected at one point by the looks of things. Okay, so here we are. We're inside of the system. Let's just kind of get a different view on this. Okay, so I think that's a much better view for what we're trying to see here. So we have our, again, toolless design, same case, same idea, same expansion here. Again, no hard drives present. Lots of SATA wiring to imply that there was something there, but unfortunately there's not. And then we have this floating power supply, this 500 watt power supply by Cooler Master that is in there and just literally banging around in there and disconnected. Half disconnected from the motherboard. So I have no idea what the dealio was there on that specifically, why that has been unplugged like that. So looking at the actual state of the board itself, though, we still have our 4 memory sticks populated, and we have all the tabs that are in there. And as you know, I've said this a million times. I'm going to say it again. I'm not removing the RAM this time because it won't work for me. Okay, so we have the same expansion capabilities on this board as we had on the others. Now, there is some physical damage to the board, and it's mainly to jumpers. So we have some jumpers down here on the bottom of the board that had some plastic. Let me just pull it out there. Yeah, there's definitely some physical damage to the jumpers that are on here. So I just bend those back into shape. And again, that's probably due to the fact that we had a giant power supply flopping around inside this case. So that is unfortunate, but nothing that we can't get going. As long as the jumpers were on there, nothing's changed. And I'm physically looking at the motherboard itself, and I'm not seeing any damage to the board, to the PCB, which is good news. Because again, being the boards they are, it's nice to, it's nice to have these boards, especially a server board and in a desktop form factor. So that's nice. Okay. So it's again, the same identical board. So server board S3200SH. And we powered up at SHV in the CMOS the last time we took a look there. And I'm just looking at all the capacitors now. I didn't call that out in my last conversation I was having with the other system, but I'm not seeing any sort of issues with any of the caps, which is nice. But I'm also drawing more attention to this one because of that wayward power supply that's been, jumping around here and having parties inside this case when no one's looking. Okay, but I'm not seeing any other physical damage as a result of that floating around, which is great. And the case itself is solid. I mean, the other case was solid as well because, it had the, just the plastics were kind of damaged on it, but everything else seemed to be pretty darn good on it. I mean, if this power is up, then and posts, and we'd be in a good position to restore this system here. But yeah, I like that. So definitely in a good spot. This really sets a stage for what we want to do in a future build. But yeah, let's hope it does spin up. So okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm not going to screw that back in right now. I know it goes against what I was just saying, but I just want to really test this and see if it's going to work at all, to be honest with you. Okay, so we have the power, supplementary power to the board. We have the main ATX connector to the board there. Nothing's in the way. I mean, nothing's really evident that's going to cause any sort of shorts or anything like that. This is just sitting down at the bottom. I'm not going to be tilting this back up again. So that's good. Okay, I think that's it. I think that's all I need to do. I don't see anywhere else on the board. It has built on video, so I don't need to worry about that. It's identical board as we talked about before. So let's get the bench all set up and see if this system will post for us. Okay, so we're all set up back on the bench with the system number 2 all ready to go. Let's fire this system up. And already I see there's physical damage to the power button. So definitely something that we'd be doing is swapping out this front panel with the other system panel to get it really in a much better shape. So let's hit power button there. It just requires a lot of force to turn it on there. And I'm hearing some bearing noises inside this one where it was completely quiet in the other system. Yeah, we're getting the same delay on post. This time we're not getting any beeps though. Again, because we all know it's because I touched the RAM. So I didn't do it this time. So here we are. Naturally, it's working. Okay, so, we see some things going on the screen here. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so I saw some flash on the screen. Here we go. Same idea as before. Showed there's the Intel Embedded Server RAID Technology 2. Same version, same screen as we had on the other system. And that's what I'm anticipating now at this stage. 2 identical systems. Now it's just about assessing the damage on both and seeing what we can do. So it's telling me again, there's no hard disks. Because again, there's no hard disks in this system. So we definitely have to get those sorted out. It would be cool to potentially take advantage of the RAID functionality in this, again, for reliability. Okay, let's do a restart here. And I believe it was F2 for setup. I think I saw it on the flash up here. I know I was mashing the keyboard a little bit, trying all different options, but I'll see if I can tap the F2 and see if we can get into the BIOS itself. So it looks to be back up and running. So we have our logged in as administrator. So same board, same build date of May 22nd, 2009. The Core 2 processor running at 2.67 gigahertz is the same as the other system. But if you look, the RAM is showing 8 gigs of RAM in this system, where the other one had shown the 4 gigs of RAM. So you definitely a bonus to have that. And showing the system date and time is working. So we're on track for everything so far. So processor configuration, let's take a look here. So all the same stuff that's in here. It's the same Core 2 quad system. So we have 8 gigabytes. Sure enough, 4x2 is what's installed in here. Dual channel 800 megahertz. So great find, good thing to have in the system. Will definitely become useful. We do have the SATA controller configured as RAID. We expect that because we saw that at the beginning as well. Not going to live our lives in those setup screens. We just want to take a look at everything. So again, the resources under the serial, port configuration, USB configuration, pretty standard. Everything's the same as what we had in the other screen as well. And then the PCI configuration, same idea. The dual monitor video is disabled. I think it was enabled. I don't remember anymore. I have to look at the footage, but I think it was enabled on the other system. So security is disabled. We know that. Server management, all the same settings here that we would have as part of that system. Boot options, again, everything is set up the identical way as the other system, and then boot manager, same way. So we have 2 posting systems that clearly were built to be identical outside of the memory being slightly different. And also the fact that the both were set up in some sort of server environment, whether they were clustered together, as I had mentioned, or used in some sort of domain controller and server environment or whatever. So let's get the bench all cleared up. Let's get the second one or the first one back up on the bench, and let's talk about what potentially we're going to be able to do with these systems. And here we are, all set back up on the bench, and we have our two Cooler Master twins set up in front of us. And that's system number 1 and system number 2, respectively. So in summary, in system number 1, we definitely had a much more stable in terms of complete system. Everything's kind of screwed down. There's no physical damage to any of the board, any of the things that we found. But again, common theme for both systems, both hard drives are missing. Physically, when it comes to structure, both systems are identical. There's no physical bending, warping that I can see in the systems. Now, cosmetically, each system has its own issues in terms of the plastics and or the side panels. So I definitely think that there's an option here to strip down one of the systems or actually both systems and get them all cleaned up and then kind of just do a swap and find the best parts and get everything, into a solid one working system. So this system here, pretty good. Both have the 500 watt ATX power supplies, which is awesome. Cooler Master makes very nice equipment, so very nice to have those. This one here is literally floating around inside the case. That's the one that was all running around, doing some damage to the bottom jumper sets there. So definitely want to take a look at that. This system number 2 has the 8 gigabytes of RAM versus the 4 gigabytes. So we'll be taking advantage of that in the future as well. And just really remembering, but all in all, regardless of how these systems were used in the past, we have 2 systems that were built on the same date based on the date code on the back of the system and identical hardware, identical stuff that was inside there. So, it gives us a chance if something breaks that we have an identical replacement part, which is really awesome to have. Now, what do we do with this? What do you guys want to see in the future? My idea, where I'm going with this first step, would be to overcome what I had just mentioned, which is getting the system kind of all set up in such a way that we have one fully good, cosmetically looking good, but physically working good system, working well as well. And I think from there, we can decide, do we want, kind of operating system would be, appropriate for the Core 2 quad CPU running 8 gigs of RAM. I'm thinking Windows 7 for this, or, possibly another operating system. Do you guys want to see a server build in terms of, it is an Intel server board? Do you want to start playing down that road? There's all different options. So we'll talk about that as we go. But for the sake of today's video, we really wanted to talk about, having the Cooler Master twins, expose them for what they really are, and decide and discover, what was inside them, what kind of condition they're in, and do they post, and both post just fine, which is absolutely great, amazing to have. I'm a little sad we don't have the hard drives for sure. If they were rated, we'd have 4 drives sitting here right now at the very minimum, but I'm going to go source 2 SATA drives because we're only ultimately going to have one of these systems going, and get that set up on the RAID. We're going to take advantage of the RAID, and then that way, if one drive dies, we'll always know we have another drive going we can rebuild from. I think what we can do is end it on this note, knowing that there'll be another future video on these beautiful systems. That said, if you like today's video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, turn it to all. You'll be notified of other content. And of course, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. What were these used for potentially? We have dual systems that are identical. Was it a cluster? Was it a domain controller and a server environment? Let me know from your experience what potentially that was, and I'll definitely do what I can to reply, as well as leave a comment below and let me know what we think we should be potentially doing as suggestions for future with these systems. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks to all my subscribers. Thank you to everybody helping this channel grow, and we will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.